Welcome to the Global Policy Institute podcast. My name is Chris Yalda, and I'm an undergraduate research fellow for GPI. Today we are talking with Dr. Arin Brahma at LMU to gain some insight into issues surrounding the intersection of big data, artificial intelligence, and policy. Dr. Brahma has over 20 years of experience in executive management, client management, solution delivery, consulting, teaching, and with technology experience in IT-enabled services, systems integration, and software development. Dr. Brahma was an executive vice president at Oracle's Financial Services BPO division and is now a professor here at LMU teaching on information systems and business analytics. Good evening, Dr. Brahma. Thank you for joining us this evening. So to demystify the sort of big data and how that relates to people's everyday lives, I'd like to talk about genetic testing, such as things like 23andMe. So I was wondering if you could tell us about how people's genetic data from these tests, they think they're having fun taking them, and then it ends up being harvested and sold, and there's consequences to that. Could you speak on that for us?
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks for having me for this interview. And I think your very first question itself is pretty loaded and very, very interesting because yes, you're right. I mean, consumer portals like 23andMe, which actually I myself also have used from a family, it's very interesting and seems to be fun. Personally, when I signed up for that, they give a lot of choices of privacy. So if all those are enforced and maintained, then it's good. But there's no guarantee what's happening in the back end, right? So it does have a lot of benefits so that, I can understand genetically how, my health would be compared to my parents or the family in the family lineage. So it has definitely a lot of good use. And genetics guided treatments are becoming more focused. Better medicines are being invented. More targeted treatments are happening. So there's all great things. But ultimately, data privacy can ruin it all, right? Because it could be a double-edged sword, because the same data that is allowing you to get all these great benefits can be also dangerous in the hand of wrong people. So if this data gets in the hand of an insurance company who is acting in bad faith, they can manipulate and profile you, and they can hike up your insurance in so many ways. Also, genetics can be tracked to individual person. If they also keep the sample. When you're doing the saliva, all those stuff, send it to 23andMe, they're also having the biosample. Question is, how is it preserved, right? What if it goes to some wrong hand and they have your genetic footprint? So with that, it can be discriminated, it can be denied based on your political belief or your cultural belief or your social beliefs. So it's a really double-edged sword, and it's not just with genetics, but even social media interactions. We sometimes forget that we worry too much about privacy or private data. But any data about us is data. Even my shopping behavior, it may not seem privacy oriented, that it itself can give insight to pinpoint a particular person. That's very dangerous. So I think like any technology, how it's used could be double-edged sword. I mean, this genetic testing, I think, especially consumer platforms like 23andMe, I think there should be much stricter regulation given the significance of misuse or the consequences of misuse. So yes, I think it should be. I'm not aware of the current degree of regulation that regulates these companies, but I believe we need a strict regulation so that our data are private.
Thank you. Yeah. Data science and AI has kind of become a new fundamental pillar in the daily functions of our government and also for corporate institutions. But like is the case with the 23andMe tests, a lot of people aren't super aware of the role that data and their data is playing now in the world. So could you elaborate on how society deals with this change and the impacts that it's having on people?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talk about data science and AI. So let me clarify the overlap between the two first. So AI is a subset of data science. Data science begins with starting with the raw data and clean it, transform it, and make it suitable so that AI can work on it. So AI is one of the tools, many tools that data science overall uses. So obviously the AI and data science combination, both AI and data science advanced a lot using new tools, faster computers, new algorithms. So they are extremely powerful right now. And surprisingly, AI is not new. It was in 1960s and 70s. All the AI algorithms that we use today, they were invented in 1960s and 70s. So it's really not new. But at that time, it did not succeed the way it's succeeding today because we didn't have that much powerful computers or network speed that time. So today, AI can do amazing things. And again, the application of AI and data science could be in a very, very fruitful, productive, beneficial to society. At the same time, it can be very dangerous as well. The data science and AI gives the ability to understand the data pattern in a second, right? Given powerful computers. So today that allows companies, governments, employers, insurance companies to understand you in a very deeper fashion in very quickly. Also, the application of AI is in many other devices, like we use Alexa, or we talk about driverless cars. So I think the beneficial applications of AI and data science outweighs the risk. At the same time, the risk is not insignificant. The consequences of a risk could be very devastating to the society and countries and security safety. So I think I believe there's a lot of controversy about AI. Like Elon Musk talked about, AI might take over us one day, and some other leaders say, no, that's not the case. So it's still a debate. How much AI can take over our life, or how much AI can control us beyond our own control. So that's, I think, a debatable topic right now. But I personally believe that AI can be controlled. AI is controlled by human beings. So ultimately, human beings are still in the driving seat. But in terms of misuse or use of AI, there got to be strong regulations and boundaries.
Got it. So what impact has the proliferation of, data science as it's analyzed by AI had on the rate of sort of our human evolution? And what specific policy measures do you have in mind to address these kinds of changes that we're seeing?
Yeah, good question. In terms of evolution of human society along with AI, it is tremendous. You can see the speed at which we have changed. And I will bring up social media in this context also, because social media and the background is also driven a lot by AI. So you can see the impact of social media, right? Imagine deepfakes, right, which is being distributed through the social media, misinformation, fake picture, fake video. So at the same time, they're very, very useful applications, tutorial videos, learning systems, all those things. So I think society has evolved to consume AI-driven platforms like social media in a much faster rate. The amount of population that is consuming social media today is increasing like leaps and bounds, and it is cross-generational. And younger generation is consuming social media in a faster rate. So obviously there is purpose when social media and AI is interacting with you. They are trying to communicate with you. They have to relate to you. Probably want to change your opinion, right? And there are, tools like persuasive technologies, which was invented in Stanford, but used even in elections to convince you, if you like this product, you should buy this product, this computer's product. Or if you have this kind of political belief, you should believe this one. So again, use a persuasive technology which uses AI distributed to social media. I think our society is seeing an transition, evolution in terms of how we get influenced. The way we can be influenced by AI, it was never before like that. So I think that ability to influence people's mind deeply enough to even change your mindset is very, very, very significant.
Mm-hmm. And so what policy measures do you have in mind, if you have any, as far as like addressing the changing needs?
Uh, policy ma- Policy hasn't kept up with the power of this technology, because policy makers themselves are educating themselves in terms of what it can do. I mean, the rate at which the AI innovation is happening, I think policymakers are hard time to catch up with that.
Right.
Everybody. I mean, the technology is changing so fast. Who can really keep up with that? And keep aside policymakers who necessarily did not come from a technology background necessarily, right?
Right.
So to understand the full capability of these platforms itself is kind of puts policymakers in a little bit of disadvantage. But I think as newer generation, people like you, we are being more technology aware, you will be getting the policy making positions, you'll be able to handle it better. And obviously policies necessary targeted towards misuse of technology. Technology doesn't itself has a problem, but use of it does. So I think policy should be targeted to quickly understand, catch misuse of these technologies, and create incentives or penalties so that technology is not misused. So I think there's a huge void right now in terms of how much policy is really dictating these platforms, are able to put boundaries around these platforms. There's always, a debate: how much is democratic, how much should be a right, and how much you should control. So those will be probably discussed for next 100 years as well in a democratic country. So it's a challenging for the policymakers. It's not easy job right now, but somebody has to step up and do the job.
Awesome. With digitalization and globalization being a core focus of the post-pandemic, how much importance should we pay on issues such as data localization, considering that there is a demand in acquiring big data by other foreign actors? And does sharing our citizens' sensitive data pose a threat to national security?
Absolutely. I'm starting from the end part of your question, and I teach big data myself. So, I really understand what big data technologies can do. So the question of localizing data is a very relevant one, and the reason is, if data goes to a wrong hand, whether it's a national government or a foreign actor or a company, using big data technology, the ability to pinpoint a particular person is tremendous. And the democracy, I think, is the biggest threat to democracy, because democracy survives in anonymity. You can go to a protest and feel safe that your face will not be identified by AI engine, and runs to a big data server very quickly, identify who exactly you are and where you probably living, what's your address, all those stuff, right? So the ability to be able to play a role in democracy, it becomes very challenging right now, because big data can very quickly find out through zillions of records, pinpoint who you are from a picture, a picture of a face, or even what you chat online, or what your social media chats. Imagine that there are many authoritative countries, right? Let's say you want to visit one of these countries, and 6 months back you posted something about the government, criticizing that government, right? Guess what? Your visa might be denied. Why? They have the ability from your information to go and very quickly search zillions of records and find you. That ability wasn't there before big data technology. So we survive in anonymity, because we assume, hey, no one can find me what I said on social media or what I live. So that ability is very, very dangerous. As much as it can do good things, but if data, so that brings to the point of the need for data localization. Absolutely. I think data absolutely should be local to the extent it is needed. And other problem we have, some countries have like closed internet, but our internet is open. That means we can go get data from the internet, but they can come openly and get data from our internet, right? Or any country who doesn't have those firewalls, right? So that puts countries in disadvantage, because I think all of our profile is there in the hands, in the servers of some authority governments across the world. I guarantee you that. Okay, and it's very easy. You can scour it from Facebook or Instagram. They're open platform. If you have a profile, it's very easy to store that, and storing data was there always. That's not a problem. But ability to find you in a second, that is what big data does.
Right.
So I think it's very, very people don't understand that. I tell my students that what big data can do, and be careful what you write on the internet. So, but that points to the same problem, that the data privacy and localization is very important.
Thank you. Have you observed any wide-reaching data privacy violations which, in your view, should be protected in recent times? And if so, what are some precautionary measures that can be taken to address these problems?
I think the recent most significant event was Cambridge Analytica. I think that has such a far-reaching impact, where Facebook data, that means your and mine, interaction data with the platform, was all exported or stolen without permission of us, right? And we know how it was used. It was used to profile every citizen and then try to find out what could be your political inclination. And then they were able to target specific subset of the population to send, carteled or, very targeted messages, right, without our permissions. So I think that is in recent times, I think it is the biggest impactful, I think, data privacy violation.
And do you see, in your view, like any precautionary measures that everyday people could do to protect their data?
Yeah, I think this has come up during Facebook Senate hearing, all the stuff. When you join social media, by default everything is open.
Right.
They give you tools to protect the privacy, but then you have to actually know how to go and click and close down all those windows. I think as a policy, by default should be everything closed. Only if you want, then you can give your walls or your media access to your friends or friends and all those things. So I think that should be the very first thing the policymaker should do. By default, everything should be closed, and you should be consciously opening up based on what you need to open, because most people do not know how to interact with the platform, what are the different features, how to close down various the privacy options. They don't know. So I think that's a very simple fix to do, and that's going to do a lot of that itself is a good fix.
Yeah,
to some extent.
Yeah, and I think that is a really good one, because most people can relate to the confusion of having to go through and disable a bunch of settings. It's like something that policymakers could probably grasp. So I think that's a really good policy point. So one last question. Are you currently working on any research projects related to artificial intelligence? And if so, can you elaborate and let us know how any students could reach out to you if they're interested in talking to you about these topics?
Absolutely. All my projects are on AI/machine learning area, because that's my area of specialization. And I work in two areas so far. One is healthcare, other is financial services. And my third area of passion is environmental, especially solar energy or alternate energy. I haven't started working on that, but that's one on my list. So in the healthcare side, some of the work I'm doing is for a large children's hospital here locally, and we are trying to see there are a lot of one of the big problem in hospitals in general is they have the appointments. And let's say there are 100 appointments today, and based on the appointments, they have to schedule your nurses, MAs and doctors and everyone, right? Not only 60 shows up, but they're all allocated. So there's a huge waste in terms of money, as well as those resources could be used elsewhere, right? So we are trying to use AI to predict out of all the appointments which ones are likely to show up on the particular day. And based on that, they can do more predictive scheduling of resources than just fixed scheduling based on how many appointments are. So that was very well received by the work. Actually, myself and my student teams on the MSBA student teams. Actually, Dhiman was one of the member in the team. So this was very well accepted by the hospital, and now they want to go to the next step of implementing that, make the models even better, and implementing that for real life. So that's one of the projects. Second projects I'm doing is for international location, where we're trying to understand if the demographics can predict eye diseases. So because in poorer countries, they don't have always access to devices, eye testing devices. But it's possible. Is it possible that if you look at the family history, their diet, their daily habits, does it have any correlation with the disease they're most likely to have? So again, based on the past data, AI can pinpoint that. Say, hey, if you are having this kind of lifestyle, this region, this is your family history, you most likely should get checked for glaucoma, right? Mm-hmm. So with that kind of application, in poorer countries where their resources are less, they can do much better screening and reduce healthcare costs and serve the population better. And also I'm doing some projects in financial services, which is loan origination services for mortgage banks, to predict. Loan is a long cycle. Once you apply for a loan to buy a house, it takes almost 30 days to get approved. Now their companies are thinking they can be more competitive if they can do it in 15 days. How do you do that? So question is, a lot of time get wasted in removing conditions. For example, you applied, you claim there are 2 W-2s, but only one is the other one is missing. So this conversation goes back and forth between broker, the borrowers, with the company. Question is, looking at the conversation, just text, can the AI engine predict if this loan is going to get delayed or not, right? If AI can predict this, I think this conversation is going in a track which tells me it probably get delayed, then this can escalate it to someone more senior to work faster. Mm-hmm. So that's another interesting project they're working. And students have opportunity, absolutely, to, I think the knowledge they gain from various courses in LMU, they can absolutely apply to these kind of projects. And in special MSBA programs, they are able to do that. They actually work and do projects with the industry to solve these interesting problems.
That's really interesting. Thank you. So, on behalf of the entire GPI team, thank you for your time and your valuable insights today, Dr. Brahma. You've given us a lot to ponder on and to think about, and we look forward to hosting you at our future events. Thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.